Across the vast landscape of American history, food festivals once brought communities together in ways that feel almost magical today. Long before social media and national marketing campaigns, towns celebrated harvests, regional specialties, and cultural pride through gatherings centered entirely around food. Some of these festivals thrived for decades before quietly fading into obscurity. The first of these lost celebrations was the New York Oyster Harvest Jubilee, once held along the Hudson River in the mid-1800s. At a time when oysters were abundant and affordable, this festival featured oyster shucking contests, chowder cook-offs, and communal seafood feasts. Over-harvesting and pollution eventually diminished oyster populations, and the beloved celebration disappeared. In Illinois, the Prairie Chicken Supper Festival once drew farming families from miles around. Held every autumn in the late 19th century, the event centered on wild prairie chicken roasts cooked in cast iron pits. As prairie habitats declined and conservation laws changed hunting practices, the bird became scarce, and the festival slowly vanished. Down south, the Georgia cane syrup boil brought rural communities together. Each winter, families gathered to press sugarcane and boil the juice in large kettles, creating thick golden syrup. The festival symbolized cooperation and tradition, but industrial sugar production and modernization reduced the need for communal syrup-making events. California once hosted the Gold Rush Miners' Bean Feast, honoring the simple yet hearty meals that sustained prospectors. Large iron pots of beans simmered for hours, while storytellers shared tales of fortune and hardship. As mining towns dwindled, so too did this nostalgic gathering. In Maine, the Coastal Sardine Packing Day Festival celebrated the region's thriving sardine industry. Visitors toured canneries and sampled fresh-caught fish. When the sardine industry declined in the 20th century, the festival lost its foundation and faded away. The Texas Frontier Chili Carnival predates many modern chili cook-offs. Ranchers competed using open fire methods, showcasing regional spice blends. Over time, commercialization shifted attention to larger state fairs, leaving this smaller carnival behind. In Pennsylvania, the Scrapple Heritage Fair once honored German immigrant foodways. Farmers demonstrated traditional scrapple preparation using every part of the pig. As industrial meatpacking replaced small farms, the festival's authenticity diminished until it ceased entirely. Louisiana's Bayou Crawfish smoke gathering focused not on boiling, but smoking crawfish over cypress wood. Environmental shifts and commercial seafood operations transformed the industry, ending the small-scale tradition. The Vermont Maple Moonlight Feast celebrated nighttime sap collection under lantern light. Families boiled sap through the night, sharing music and stories. Mechanized production removed the romance, and attendance gradually declined. Ohio's River Catfish Fry Tournament once filled riverbanks with laughter and sizzling skillets. Pollution and declining fish populations forced the event's cancellation. These forgotten food festivals reveal how deeply cuisine was woven into daily life. Each celebration reflected local agriculture, environment, and culture. Their disappearance often mirrored industrialization, environmental change, or shifting economic realities. What remains are scattered photographs, faded newspaper clippings, and memories passed down through generations. Though lost to history, these festivals shaped regional identity and community bonds. They remind us that food is more than nourishment. It is tradition, storytelling, and shared experience. As America evolved, so did its celebrations. Some festivals transformed into modern versions, while others vanished entirely. Yet their spirit lives on in today's farmers markets, heritage fairs, and culinary revivals. Remembering these lost gatherings offers a glimpse into a simpler time when entire towns paused to honor the flavors that defined them. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, small American towns often built their identities around a single crop, catch, or culinary specialty. One such forgotten celebration was the Michigan Celery Carnival. Kalamazoo was once known as the Celery City, and every summer locals gathered for parades decorated with celery stalks, cooking contests featuring creamy celery soups, and brass bands marching through fields. As agricultural trends shifted and other states overtook production, the festival slowly dissolved into memory. In Arkansas, the Ozark Possum Roast Fair was once a rugged mountain tradition. Families prepared slow-roasted possum with sweet potatoes, celebrating frontier survival skills. Changing tastes and modernization made the dish less popular, and the festival faded by the mid-20th century. Florida's key lime harvest social predates the commercialized pie festivals of today. Early settlers gathered to share fresh key lime custards and preserves. Hurricanes, an agricultural disease, reduced key lime groves, and large-scale production moved elsewhere, ending the original harvest celebration. In Kansas, the sunflower molasses gathering honored sorghum farmers who pressed cane into thick syrup. The event featured mule-powered presses and communal pancake breakfasts. Industrial sweeteners eventually replaced small-batch molasses, and attendance declined. The Oregon Salmon Plank Festival once highlighted native-inspired cedar plank cooking techniques. Entire salmon were roasted over open fires along riverbanks. Overfishing regulations and environmental protections reshaped fishing traditions, and the intimate riverside event disappeared. New Jersey's Cranberry Bog Supper Festival celebrated workers harvesting cranberries in flooded bogs. Dishes included cranberry breads, chutneys, and roasted meats glazed with tart reductions. As agribusiness consolidated operations, small community gatherings diminished. Montana's bison jerky roundup brought ranchers together to trade cured meats and spices. With stricter wildlife protections and commercial meatpacking dominance, the festival lost its grassroots charm and eventually ceased. In Mississippi, the Delta Cornbread Jubilee focused entirely on cast iron skillet competitions. Each family guarded secret recipes. As larger food expos drew attention away, this humble celebration could not compete. Colorado's mining camp pie auction once featured pies baked from limited frontier ingredients like dried apples and wild berries. With the decline of mining camps, so too went this rustic event. These festivals, once vibrant and deeply local, were rooted in necessity and pride. Their disappearance reflects changing economies, shifting tastes, and evolving lifestyles. Yet they remain powerful reminders of how food once anchored entire communities. The early 20th century saw immigrant communities preserving heritage through food-centered gatherings, many of which have since vanished. In Wisconsin, the Old World Rye Bread Fair celebrated traditional baking methods brought by European settlers. Brick ovens lined town squares, and judges evaluated crust texture and flavor. As commercial bakeries replaced home ovens, the fair slowly ended. Massachusetts once hosted the Clam Barrel Rolling Festival along its coastal towns. Fishermen competed to prepare the largest batches of clam chowder in wooden barrels. Industrial fishing shifts and health regulations gradually phased out the original event. In New Mexico, the Pueblo Blue Corn Feast honored ancient maize varieties with ceremonial breads and stews. Modern agricultural changes and tourism reshaped traditional observances, reducing the scale of the original celebration. South Carolina's rice harvest homecoming dated back to plantation-era agriculture. Community rice dishes were shared in large gatherings. Mechanization and urbanization changed farming patterns, and the event faded. Idaho's Trout Smoking Camp Festival invited families to smoke fresh-caught trout using alder wood. Environmental conservation laws and recreational fishing limits ended the annual feast. In Kentucky, the Burgoo Kettle Convention once united towns over massive iron kettles filled with slow-cooked stew. While Burgoo remains popular, the original small-town kettle gatherings disappeared. Nevada's Desert Fig Preservation Day celebrated rare desert-grown figs turned into jams. Drought conditions and agricultural shifts ended the harvest tradition. Maryland's Oyster Shell Roadhouse Feast combined oyster roasts with coastal dances. Declining oyster beds led to the event's closure. Each of these festivals tells a story of adaptation and loss. They were shaped by environment, labor, and shared identity. As industries evolved, these intimate celebrations struggled to survive. Food festivals were once expressions of survival and gratitude. In North Dakota, the Wheat Thresher's Supper honored the end of harvest with massive bread baking sessions and roasted meats. Mechanized farming reduced the communal aspect, and the festival faded. Alabama's Peanut Boil Picnic centered on fresh green peanuts boiled in salted water. As commercial packaging changed distribution, the original roadside gathering declined. Rhode Island's Chowder Sailors Feast once gathered dock workers for seaside chowder competitions. Changing port industries reduced participation. In Tennessee, the Sorghum Stir-Off Festival showcased farmers stirring thick syrup for hours. With modern sweeteners dominating markets, the tradition waned. Arizona's Mesquite Bean Milling Day honored indigenous grinding techniques used for flour. Urban expansion diminished the annual observance. West Virginia's Apple Butter Kettle Night filled towns with the scent of slow-cooked apples. Though apple butter survives, the original lantern-lit kettle gathering no longer exists. Utah's Pioneer Dutch Oven Rally featured cast iron cooking contests along wagon trails. Tourism reshaped it into smaller reenactments rather than true communal feasts. Indiana's Persimmon Pudding Social once celebrated wild persimmon harvests. Habitat changes and urban growth reduced participation. These lost events remind us how deeply food once marked the rhythm of seasons. Their decline reflects modernization's steady pace. Some forgotten American food festivals disappeared quietly without documentation. In rural Virginia, the hem curing celebration once marked the winter preservation season. Smokehouses perfumed entire valleys. Industrial meatpacking reduced the need for communal curing events. In Iowa, the rhubarb pie parade honored hardy spring crops. School children marched with pie-shaped banners. Changing agricultural focus ended the parade. Minnesota's Wild Rice Canoe Feast highlighted hand-harvested grains cooked over open fires. Commercialization altered traditional harvesting practices. Oklahoma's Chuck Wagon Biscuit Bake-Off gathered ranch cooks competing in open prairie settings. As ranching modernized, the authentic bake-off faded. California's Mission Olive Press Day celebrated hand-pressed olive oil production. Large-scale operations replaced the intimate community pressings. Hawaii's early Pineapple Plantation Feast honored workers with shared meals after harvest. Corporate consolidation reshaped the industry. Alaska's Salmonberry Jam Social centered on foraged berries turned into preserves. Climate shifts and urban migration reduced gatherings. Missouri's Black Walnut Cracking Fair once echoed with the sound of shells splitting. Mechanized processing ended the need for communal cracking days. These lost food festivals reflect changing landscapes, industries, and communities. Though forgotten by many, they represent an era when food connected neighbors in tangible, heartfelt ways. Their disappearance leaves behind stories worth remembering, reminding us that every region once celebrated its flavors with pride and unity.